This cylindrical object was seen on Mars, but what is the truth behind it? Evidence of life found on Mars, but National Aeronautics and Space Administration completely rejected it. Why do we keep going after Mars? Have more than 15 missions failed? Why did missions and ancient civilizations give Mars a special place among the gods? What did they know about Mars? So, hello, greetings, Sat Shri Akal. Mars has always been a fascination for us, that red shining sphere. From the beginning, it has always been that red shining sphere. We have always believed that there is a strong connection between Mars and Earth. Do gods live there? And is there any intelligent life on Mars? Ancient people always used to think this. Its red color definitely scared them, but they considered Mars as a deity. The god of war, Augustus, a Roman emperor, built many temples in honor of his god Mars. Whenever there was a war, the war strategy would be made right there. The doors of the temple of Mars would be opened so that the connection with Mars would remain. There is a lot of evidence in history where Mars was seen at a completely different level and was studied more than any other planet. Ancient Egyptian astronomers created a star map in 1534 before Christ, and Mars was also given a place on that chart. About 250 years later, the Egyptians depicted Mars in this way on the ceiling of Seti I's tomb. There was a civilization that was afraid of Mars, afraid of its wrath, the Mayan civilization. Their calendars and books also mention the existence of Mars. After all these things were pointing towards a major link between us and Mars, even though all these civilizations were isolated from each other. Why were they all giving us the same clue? Why are we humans the ones ruling this earth, and how did we humans evolve so rapidly? All civilizations evolved, but why is evolution so slow for all other species? Did aliens really come to Earth and give us so much knowledge? The events of angels coming from heaven outside the earth are written in all the religions of the world. And you also know that if we have to point towards heaven, we look towards space, towards those stars. If we just replace the word heaven with space, the picture starts to become clear. Was our creation really done in ancient times by some space travelers, or did they give us some kind of knowledge whom we now call God? Many believe that this space travel was done by Martians. In 1849, during the Mesopotamia expedition, some texts related to the Sumerian civilization came to light. When they were decoded, they belonged to the ancient Sumerian god Anunnaki. They were angels who came from another world. They used their genes to create a hybrid human called Adamu, the first human on Earth. They created an entire army of human slaves to extract gold from the earth, who were quite intelligent. The Anunnaki built many structures during their time, and before leaving, they gave us humans knowledge of architecture, mathematics, music, and writing. Were the Anunnaki Martians who were thinking about saving their planet? They came to Earth in search of existence. And is there still any intelligent life on Mars today? There are some incidents that draw our attention to the possibility of intelligent life forms on Mars, such as the Soviet Union's Phobos 2 mission. This mission saw something on Mars that no one on Earth could explain. In July 1988, the Soviet Union launched two twin missions to Mars, Phobos 1 and Phobos 2, to explore Mars. Phobos 1 disappeared on the way. It disappeared because after losing connection, no one knew where the spacecraft went or what happened to it. The explanation given was that due to human error, Phobos met with an accident on the way. Somehow, Phobos 2 managed to reach the red planet. As soon as it arrived on Mars, Phobos 2 also started experiencing problems. The three processors on the onboard flight control system suddenly began to behave strangely. One processor completely failed, and the other two were also having problems. On March 27, 1989, Phobos 2 was supposed to take photos of Mars's moon, Phobos. This spacecraft was about to go behind Mars, and its connection with Earth's ground control was going to be lost for some time. In this process, the spacecraft usually stays out of connection for about 1 to 1.5 hours, but 4 hours passed. There was no trace of the spacecraft. Suddenly, a signal was received, but it was a signal that could not be decoded. In its last moments, Phobos 2 sent a photo showing a very large dark shadow on the surface of Mars. This was the last photo sent by the spacecraft. The photo was taken at the time when something collided with Phobos 2, and suddenly the spacecraft became uncontrollable and started spinning. Now the question was, what was that dark shadow? It was not from either of Mars's moons, Phobos or Deimos. It looked like a thin, ellipse-shaped, unidentified flying object. At that time, the chairman of the Soviet Union carefully stated about the photo that an object of a very strange shape was captured between the spacecraft and Mars in one of the images. This was a very precise statement, focusing on the spacecraft and Mars. But at the Unidentified Flying Object Conference in 1991, a former serviceman of the Soviet Union said that you can consider it the first leaked photo of an alien spaceship found in our solar system. After that last transmission, Phobos mysteriously disappeared and there was never any further communication with it. Was it possible that some energy beam struck Phobos 2, and was that cigar-shaped object similar to the recently observed first interstellar object Oumuamua? Is there some civilization living underground beneath Mars? Maybe to protect themselves from the dangerous radiation of the sun, the inhabitants of Mars learned to live underground. Who knows, maybe they are even afraid to come to the surface of Mars. Perhaps they cannot withstand that radiation. And it is possible that they are struggling to save their civilization. Maybe they went underground millions of years ago, and after that, a solar storm caused devastation on Mars. A Martian civilization might be living right next to us, but we are unable to see it. Otherwise, what is that energy that is stopping us from exploring Mars? This spacecraft was not the only one that disappeared behind Mars. National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Mars orbiter also mysteriously vanished just before entering Mars's orbit. Spacecraft lost in space are gone forever. It's not like we can recover them and find out what happened to them. There is no black box, no marks of struggle to look for, and no physical investigation. All we have in front of us is its path, flight data, and the signals it was sending. Once a spacecraft is lost, everything is over. We can only guess what might have happened to it. For that one incident, the number of possible events is considered, but the truth is what actually happened to that spacecraft. The data that it recorded but was never able to send. Japan's Mars mission, Nozomi spacecraft disappeared on the way. Russia's Mars 96 crashed in Earth's atmosphere. National Aeronautics and Space Administration is Mars polar lander lost contact just 49 seconds before going behind Mars, so there was no further communication and it burned up in the Martian atmosphere. Oops, poor spacecraft. It was said that English units were used to program the spacecraft, while National Aeronautics and Space Administration had instructed to use metric units. A company named Lockheed Martin made it. For all these errors, the spacecraft is cross-checked 2 or 3 times. It's unbelievable. Even with such a mistake, the spacecraft reached Mars correctly. But why did it have to fail there? Similarly, another Mars lander, Beagle 2, also got lost after reaching Mars. These incidents are not just 1, 2, or 3, but 15 missions have disappeared on Mars like this. What is it about Mars that so many missions have failed after reaching there? Because of this, these failures have been called the Mars Curse. In 1901, Nikola Tesla claimed that he had received a communication signal from Mars. And the press covered his claim on a large scale. So was Tesla right, was he? He tried to communicate with extraterrestrial alien life, but no scientist living on this very Earth paid attention to what he said. Who knows, maybe the Martians were trying to communicate when they got the chance, just like we are doing today. The famous Dirac equation says that there are millions and billions of such things in our galaxy, where intelligent civilizations could exist, so one civilization could be close to us, even on Mars. Carl Sagan and Drake were quite excited by this idea of what the possibility is for civilizations in this universe to communicate with each other. It's possible that because of their progressive values, technology technology and science, they either advanced far ahead or destroyed themselves by fighting among themselves. Some theorists believe India never existed on Mars. There used to be an intelligent civilization, but being too advanced became a burden for them. They were destroyed in a terrible war on Mars, and the marks of that war still exist today in the form of huge craters and the wireless mariners built on Mars. Those Martians destroyed themselves by fighting, and their remnants remain buried under the sandstorms that sweep across Mars. Who knows, maybe some generation of those Martians has managed to keep themselves alive until today, and they just don't want to reveal themselves. In September 1975, during National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Viking mission, the most mysterious incident came to light. To search for life, Viking conducted some tests on the surface of Mars, but the results were quite controversial. It was believed that living organisms release carbon monoxide. To test this, samples of Martian soil were kept in Viking sample tubes for 7 days. After 7 days, bubbles were seen in the test, which, according to National Aeronautics and Space Administration's definition, were indicative of life on Mars. However, one test that was conducted to search for organic matter turned out to be a failure. For life to exist on Mars, one test required 30 million bacteria per unit sample of soil, while another required only 30. The tests were positive, but National Aeronautics and Space Administration's higher authorities refused to accept these results. However, National Aeronautics and Space Administration's own scientists considered these results to be 100% accurate. National Aeronautics and Space Administration said that the results were false positives. There were two opinions within National Aeronautics and Space Administration regarding these results, and those tests were never conducted again on Mars. But even after so many failures on Mars, billions of dollars are still being spent. What is there after all? Are National Aeronautics and Space Administration and other space agencies hiding something from us? Evidence of water, methane, and organic matter on Mars has already come to light. But is there any alien race developing there? This question still remains only among the general public. It is said that National Aeronautics and Space Administration has conducted many alien expeditions. The information has always been kept secret, so have the aliens on Mars also been kept secret from us? For every answer we have on this topic, there are even more questions. All the incidents that happened on Mars point towards the possibility of aliens. That last image from Phobos 2, its mystery never came to light. Should we also think about Mars from the angle of aliens? Look closely at this mysterious rock. This is not just an ordinary stone, but a puzzle on Mars that could change human history forever. On the surface of this stone lying at the bottom of a dried up river, there are black spots and small circular marks. A strange pattern can be seen as if it is hiding some dark mystery from ancient times. On Earth, such patterns are often associated with microorganisms, bacteria, or ancient fossils. These marks are often formed when microorganisms cause chemical reactions in mud, which over time get embedded in the stone. But this rock is not from Earth. It is present on Mars, a mysterious place where the dusty surface has been hiding unsolved mysteries for centuries. Finding such structures on the surface of Mars is an extraordinary discovery for scientists because Mars has always been seen by our human civilization as connected to life. Billions of years ago, water and life existed together on this planet. But today, Mars is lifeless, barren, and desolate. Can this rock give us the answer to the biggest question of the universe? Are we alone in this vast universe? We found this rock in the Jezero crater on Mars, where National Aeronautics and Space Administration as Perseverance rover is tirelessly searching for signs of ancient life on this barren planet. Recently, the Perseverance rover discovered this rock, and in a press conference, National Aeronautics and Space Administration claimed that this could be the strongest evidence of alien life on Mars found so far. The presence of organic molecules and some very special minerals like vivianite and greigite in this rock has surprised scientists. National Aeronautics and Space Administration chose the Jezero crater for this mission because there used to be a huge lake here, traces of flowing rivers have also been found, and the chemicals necessary for life were also present at this place. Scientists estimate that 3.5 billion years ago, Mars's environment was just like Earth's, with water, warmth, and the possibility of life. The mission of Perseverance is to explore this ancient history so that we can find out whether there was ever life on Mars. This has sparked a new wave of enthusiasm among scientists because this is the first time. Now, in a single sample, we have found the three main ingredients for life: liquid water, organic molecules, and an energy source. This discovery could prove to be a historic turning point for all of humanity. Have we really found the first solid evidence of life in this universe? This question is making not only scientists but every person think deeply. Anyone who looks up at the star-filled sky at night wonders whether we are alone in this infinite universe. Actually, our story begins at Jezero Crater, which was once part of a vast lake filled with water. Rivers used to flow here, and all the elements necessary for life were present. This crater is about 45 kilometers wide and has delta-like structures that form at river mouths. On Earth, such places are known for fossils, like the fossil areas of the Narmada Valley in India. But now, apart from loneliness, there is nothing else here. A barren and desolate planet where clouds of dust blow in the air, but National Aeronautics and Space Administration dared to land a rover here, and today Perseverance rover is there. It is searching for fossils of ancient Martian life in this crater, which might have flourished here millions of years ago. Last year, on June 9, 2024, during its routine mission, a very strange incident occurred. The rover suddenly saw a very strange rock on the path leading into that lake, which made the scientists' hearts race. When they went closer to this rock, they saw small black spots and large circular marks on it. In that moment, everyone had the same question in their minds. Is this what we have been searching for on Mars? Have we really found life on Mars? National Aeronautics and Space Administration's team immediately named these marks leopard spots and poppy seeds based on their mysterious appearance. These marks resembled the fossils of microbes found on Earth so much that the scientists became excited. But the scientists still had to prove that they actually existed on Mars. But what they found, whether it is really evidence of life on Mars or not, remains uncertain. These marks have filled the scientists with new energy. On Earth, such marks are often part of fossils, indicating that life once thrived in the mud there. If this had been found on Earth, we could confidently say that it was the result of biology. But what should we call these on Mars? This mystery is still unsolved and is keeping scientists up at night. In fact, this is the first time something like this has happened on Mars. The scientists immediately put the Perseverance rover's toolkit to work. Planetary instrument for X-ray lithochemistry detected elements like iron, phosphorus, and sulfur present in the samples. While scanning habitable environments with Raman and luminescence for organics and chemicals, used lasers to examine minerals and organic molecules. When the results of the tests on this rock came out, everyone was surprised to see that the rock contained organic molecules, that is, carbon-based compounds. Right where those strange spots were, the discovery didn't stop there. In those circular marks, iron, phosphorus, sulfur, and two special minerals, vivianite and greigite, were found. On Earth, these minerals are often associated with decaying and dead animals and plants. This is a big clue that suggests we might have found traces of ancient life on this rock. If we look at Mars, the story of the search for life goes back decades. In 1976, National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Viking landers landed on Mars to search for life. When experiments were conducted, suddenly gas started coming out of the soil as if microbes were present in it. Scientists were excited. They thought that life had finally been found on Mars, but later it was discovered that this was due to reactive chemicals, not evidence of life. In the 2000s, the Spirit and Opportunity rovers confirmed that there used to be vast oceans and rivers on Mars. The Curiosity rover revealed that 3 billion years ago, the conditions on Mars were habitable for life, and at the same time, life was just beginning on our Earth as well. This made scientists believe that if there really was life on Mars at some point, then fossils of ancient life could definitely be hidden in the lake beds and rivers here. To turn this belief into evidence, Perseverance is collecting samples from various regions of Mars with its robotic arm. Now, with these samples, the Perseverance rover was ready to make the greatest discovery in human history. Over the past year, Earth scientists have thoroughly examined the data sent by the Perseverance rover. They studied the composition of the samples and also considered the reasons behind those strange spots. Just a few days ago, they finally made their announcement. National Aeronautics and Space Administration also presented it to scientists around the world so that they could pressure test it and determine whether the conclusion they were reaching was correct. After about a year of review, National Aeronautics and Space Administration came before the world and said that they couldn't find any other explanation, so this could be the clearest sign of ancient life on Mars so far. In simple words, this discovery is unimaginable, Aki. This is the first time that all three have been found together in the same sample. It's just like arriving at a campsite and finding a camp, a fire ring, rocks, and leftover food there. It's solid proof that someone was definitely there, even if you can't see them now. After seeing results like this, scientists also considered alternative hypotheses. Things came to light and surprised everyone. The Vivianite and Greigite found in this mysterious Martian rock indicate that a redox reaction had taken place here, and microbial life can definitely do this. But to say that only microbial life can do this, there are several possibilities. The first possibility was high-temperature geology. If mud is heated for a long time, such traces could also form. But there is no evidence that such an environment ever existed on Mars. Besides, Vivianite forms at low temperatures and is destroyed by heat. This completely rules out the possibility that there were ever high temperatures here. The second possibility was acidic water reactions. If very acidic water had flowed through this rock for a long time, it could have been possible, but there is no evidence for this in that region of Mars. In fact, olivine was also found in the rock, which is destroyed by acid, so this possibility is also ruled out. The third possibility was that organic molecules, with the help of some catalyst, carried out this reaction on their own, but in the low temperatures of Mars, this possibility is also quite weak. After carefully considering all the options, ancient microbial life seems to be the most likely answer. But even after so much evidence, and despite all the scientists being so confident, why don't they clearly say that this is life? As the famous scientist Carl Sagan said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and there can be no bigger claim than the discovery of alien life. And to bring evidence for this, we will have to go to Mars and bring back this same sample so that we can test it in Earth's most sophisticated labs. National Aeronautics and Space Administration will have to prove this discovery by its own standards. Only then will scientists be able to say that we have truly found life on Mars. For this, National Aeronautics and Space Administration is confidence of life detection scale measures the reliability of any discovery. It starts at level 1, where we get a signal related to life. And to prove that life, we have to reach level 7 on the scale. Where different types of observations confirm the same result, this discovery might only be somewhere in the middle of the scale. For now, National Aeronautics and Space Administration hasn't publicly revealed its level, but one thing is certain. To reach level 7, we will have to bring those samples from Mars to Earth. On Mars, rovers can't do much with their limited toolkit. They've done as much as they could, but by bringing these samples to Earth, we can examine them in depth in our labs, and then we can be sure whether life exists there or not. For this, it's necessary. The Perseverance rover has been collecting samples on Mars for the past few years and has been sealing and storing them. When the time comes, these will be dropped on the surface of Mars. Now, to bring those samples back, we will need 3 missions. The first mission will collect the dropped samples and take them to the launcher. The second mission will take those samples from the surface of Mars to orbit. The third and final mission will bring those samples to Earth. This is a complex and expensive task, which National Aeronautics and Space Administration has even called the world's most expensive delivery service. It's true, when just delivering a few samples will cost billions of dollars. So it's not wrong to say that, but even then, the Mars sample return mission is a priority for National Aeronautics and Space Administration. If we are able to complete this mission, we could bring the samples to Earth in the 2030s, and then we will be able to proudly say that we have found neighbors, but unfortunately, they are no longer alive. Finding evidence of life on another planet will force us to understand the meaning of our own existence. It will unite us as humans and make us think. If life can emerge anywhere, then this universe becomes a place full of living possibilities. You might remember An Alien Hand if you have read the 7th class English National Council of Educational Research and Training book. In it, a boy named Tilu lives on Mars with his parents. He is not allowed to go to the surface of Mars because the atmosphere there has become quite harsh for them and the temperature is also very low. They all live underground on Mars, but Tilu is very curious and always wonders what is on the surface above and why his father goes up through a tunnel-like path. Actually, he is the Mars sec. After an incident, his father tells him everything about why they live underground on Mars. Then, after some time, Tilu sees 2 spacecraft on the big screens that had landed on the surface of Mars. All the people living underground on Mars are glued to the screens. They were watching to see what those alien spacecraft were doing. Later, it is revealed that the 2 spacecraft seen on Mars were sent from Earth. They were the Viking 1 and Viking 2 missions. But Tilu's father immediately sent everything on the right track. It was a mission. Scientists believe that to detect life on Mars, Viking 1 and Viking 2 provided evidence of life on Mars at different locations using different test samples. But National Aeronautics and Space Administration categorized those test results as false positives and closed the matter. Well, whatever that case was, sometimes it feels like this story was written just to criticize National Aeronautics and Space Administration. I mean, that's what I believe. Share your opinion in the comments. Now, let's discuss how I suddenly remembered this story. The reason behind this is this image taken by Curiosity's mast camera. National Aeronautics and Space Administration released this image on its official website on May 7, and as soon as it came out, it went completely viral on the internet. I don't know how you are interpreting this image, but don't you think that this image shows a picture of a path leading to an underground tunnel on Mars? People on the internet are even calling it an alien doorway, and seeing this image reminded me of the story of an alien hand. Now, if we talk about this image from Curiosity, the experts are completely sure that this is just a natural feature. It's obvious that they do this. They say that this is a very curious image and they think that this structure was formed on Mars due to natural erosion, but not all scientists agree on this either. The first thing is that this is not a door, because it's neither the opening of a tunnel nor is it big enough to be considered a door. You can interpret this image however you want, but in reality, this structure is less than a meter tall. Now you can get an idea of its scale and see how small it is. If you're still confused, take a look at this panorama image. Amidst these small rocks on this big hill, this is the tiny structure that's gone so viral on the internet. I think now you have an idea of its scale. Some experts say that a piece of stone might have broken off from this rock due to natural forces. And because of that, a cavity was formed which looks like a door to us. In other words, it's just an illusion and nothing else. Meanwhile, some geologists say that Mars is geologically active and Mars quakes keep happening there, so it's normal for cracks to appear on its surface. In this image too, you can see cracks on the rocks of Mars, so it's not a big deal if they're caused by Marsquakes. A piece of rock must have broken off from this door-like place. Looking at this spot in the image, it seems that the entire rock is badly fractured. And you don't even need a big Mars quake for such a cavity to form. It's clear that this is just an optical illusion, and it's not the first time we've seen such an optical illusion on Mars. History is full of such incidents. If we talk about the year 1784, Sir William Herschel, who was a famous British astronomer, but when he looked at Mars, he saw some dark areas on Mars, so he wrote that the dark areas seen on Mars are oceans and the lighter areas are land. He also believed that there were people living on Mars like us, and his opinion lasted for about 100 years. But today we know that currently there are no signs of life on Mars, nor are there any oceans. Whatever conditions existed on Mars in history, that's a different matter. But if we talk about the illusions we've had about Mars, then the story from the year 1877 is quite unique. There was an Italian astronomer named Giovanni Schiaparelli, and when he observed Mars through his telescope, he claimed that there were rivers on Mars, and those claims were further strengthened by an astronomer named Percival Lowell. When he published a book called Mars in 1895, he literally included drawings of those canals that Giovanni Schiaparelli had talked about. After that, in the 20th century, optical illusions were debunked, and it was proven that there is nothing like that on Mars. There are no seas there, no canals, and no water either. Here, we have to admit that these optical illusions were due to the poor quality telescopes of that time. After this, in 1976, National Aeronautics and Space Administration released an image that became famous with the title Face on Mars. After this, many myths and conspiracy theories about this image started to emerge all over the world. People started to believe that there really was an ancient civilization on Mars that built such artificial structures. But as the quality of our cameras improved, the truth started to come out that these are nothing but rock formations that are confusing our minds. But even in the 21st century, many such images from Mars have come out. Seeing them, everyone says that it can't be an optical illusion every time. There must be something there. What we need to know about Mars, like this picture from 2001, makes it look like there are a lot of trees on Mars. It looks like branches are coming out from the trees, and these keep changing according to the Martian seasons. But again, this is also an illusion. This is dry ice found at the poles of Mars, which changes seasonally. But a person sitting there. In 2009, Mahatma Gandhi ji was present on Mars. In 2011, this object seen on the Google Mars map was said to be Biostation Alpha present on Mars. In 2019, the Europeans took this picture. It is also called the Blue Spider, this weird green rock and more. We don't know how many images of Mars we have received from such agencies, which make us feel that there is something on Mars that we don't know about. This entire universe, as much as we have been able to understand it so far, we have scanned millions of stars over billions of light years, discovered thousands of exoplanets, but apart from life, we haven't found it anywhere else except for one place, and we know that place is none other than our Earth, at least for now. Even if we assume that we do find life somewhere far away, all it will prove is that we are not alone in this universe. But even then, reaching that life found millions of light years away will still not be possible for us because we are not at all ready for interstellar travel yet. That's why we're not thinking about millions of light years away, but just a few million kilometers, and within this range, nothing can be better than Mars. But even today, there is still doubt among common people and scientists about whether we will be able to live on Mars. Or the question could also be whether Mars can become a permanent home for human civilization. Because until now, scientists have considered Mars to be a dead planet, and this planet is rapidly losing its internal heat. We do know that there was a time when Mars used to be inhabited. There was water there, and the environment was suitable for living. And just like Earth, Earth, there used to be geological activities on Mars as well. Evidence of these can still be seen today on the rocky and sandy surface of Mars. The volcanoes present here, in fact, the largest volcano in our entire solar system is also here. Olympus Mons on Mars also indicates that Mars gradually died and eventually everything there came to a standstill. The volcanoes stopped working, the solar winds made things worse and destroyed its atmosphere. Its core started to cool down, and as a result, its magnetic field also disappeared. And because of this, dangerous radiation took over Mars. The water present here escaped into space, and due to the sudden increase in cold, all the water here froze in place. And in this way, Mars fell victim to a slow death. But now, something is happening on Mars that has always made us think. But the images received from Mars and reconnaissance are telling a different story, and when we look at the images from the orbiter, it's clear. We can see signs of landslides and large rocks moving from one place to another on Mars. And scientists have found more than about 4,500 such patterns. These marks, spread over a radius of 900 kilometers, point towards some strange conditions occurring on Mars. Scientists are also worried after seeing all this because before 2006, more than half of these marks didn't even exist, which means they have formed recently. And this is the most frightening thing, because there is no volcanic activity on Mars. So how is this possible? What is happening on Mars that is bringing it back to life, and why has it become important for us to understand Mars now? Since 2018, National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Mars Insight lander has been continuously monitoring seismic activities on Mars and has detected about 1,500 Marsquakes so far. But compared to Earth, this is nothing, because on our planet, about 1 million earthquakes are detected every year. However, the magnitude of earthquakes on Mars is not very significant. For example, the recent earthquake in Turkey on Earth had a magnitude of 6 to 7, whereas on Mars, it usually stays around 3 to 4, but in May 2022, something different happened on Mars. Mars experienced a magnitude 5 Marsquake, which is considered a very big earthquake for the planet. And that too when tectonic activity on Mars is almost completely stopped. So how did all this happen? Scientists believe that there is still movement of magma in the inner layers of Mars. Even though the tectonic plates of Mars have completely stopped, magma is still keeping Mars active. This earthquake must have occurred due to the pressure of magma on the tectonic plates of Mars. But can these ongoing geological activities on Mars solve the mystery of life on Mars? We know that the surface conditions of Mars are not suitable for life, especially for Earthlings. Going to Mars is like stepping into the jaws of death. The harsh environment here, extreme temperatures, and radiation on the surface of Mars make it impossible for us to even think about life. And so far, even the extreme temperatures have not given us any evidence of such life on Mars. But there is one life form that can survive even these harsh conditions. Microorganisms like tardigrades, which we have exposed to the harsh environment of space as an experiment, these microorganisms survived even there. So it's also possible that some such life form exists on Mars, but ever since scientists observed geological activity happening on Mars, hopes have increased a lot. It's possible that subsurface oceans exist beneath the surface of Mars, and because of internal heat, those oceans might still be preserving life today. But then a new discovery on Mars surprised the entire scientific community. In 2018, Mars Express, which is orbiting Mars, discovered a huge underground lake at the south pole of Mars. It was spread over a large area of 75,000 square kilometers. In 2022, instruments on ExoMars also revealed that water is accumulated in the valleys and equatorial regions of Mars. And it is possible that there is liquid water beneath those frozen lakes. But there is one more thing that scientists are trying to understand. What could be the reason behind these lakes freezing? What if the amount of salt in these lakes was 20 times or even more than that of Earth's oceans? In that case, life could not have developed in these lakes on Mars. But now the challenge for scientists is how to determine the composition of these lakes. That's why space agencies like National Aeronautics and Space Administration and European European Space Agency are searching for dried up lakes on Mars and working to start missions there, so that it can be determined whether life could still exist in the oceans of Mars today. In September 2020, National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Perseverance rover made a shocking discovery in which this rover found organic molecules near a water source. Although this discovery was not a new one, it was significant because it was made within an ancient river lake, which is believed to have formed about 3.5 billion years ago, and this place still exists. In this 45-kilometer diameter Jezero crater, it has collected many samples of Martian organic matter here. The Sherlock instrument installed on this rover is designed for this very purpose, to search for organic molecules and signs of life on Mars. Apart from this, we also found hydrogen and carbon atoms bonded together on Mars. That means hydrocarbons, which is a good sign, and carbon is the basis of our life. That's why scientists believe that the possibilities of life on Mars are increasing. Many pieces of evidence found on Mars are connecting with each other, and the results are pointing in only one direction, that Mars is either alive or it has preserved life, somewhere in a corner where we still have to reach. However, it cannot be denied that these molecules might have formed due to natural processes. But these samples will be brought to Earth, and then we will be able to reach a concrete conclusion. Recently, the Curiosity rover also detected a high concentration of methane on Mars. On Earth, the presence of methane means the presence of living organisms, because this gas is emitted by them. But what should we make of the large amount of methane found on Mars? Is it really possible that somewhere on Mars, life still exists in some small form? And would it be right for us to go there? What if we end up contaminating their environment by going there? We should also think about this. It's possible that our activities could become a threat to them, or their presence there could end up destroying the human settlements on Mars. Who knows, they might be harmful to our bodies. And is it possible that by going there, we might end up awakening those sleeping monsters? There are many questions that we need to think about thousands of times before setting foot there. What do you think about this? Be sure to let us know in the comments section. And friends, if you liked today's video, be sure to like it and share it with your friends. For more such videos, subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification. We will meet you soon with another new informative video. Until then, stay curious, be happy, and goodbye.